Let's record here. All right, guys, here with the Alabama gunslinger. It's been too long. Lane Bulger. So we got some stuff. We're going off some hot topic stuff we can't go over on here with you guys. That'll be for the inner circle, but we're going to go over some cool stuff. So what we want to start with? You wanted to start with mind
Man,
map,
yeah,
whatever.
so no. We had some better stuff that we got brought up. Something I appreciate about you that I kind of, as far as admire and want to be more like, is the art of not caring. I'm going to use the nice word. And I think that's obviously that's what held me back, and I think that holds, I would say, 99% of the people back from reaching their potential. And I know I kind of threw that on you, but what has been your progress of doing that? And obviously with age and stuff, I think it comes with age. I think there's as a kid, you're looking for validation, you're trying to fit in. You get in your 30s, you start realizing, hey, I don't have as many friends. I gotta, make money. But but even now, you're on a whole nother level, from the things you post to the things you do. And was that a gift, or was that something you worked on? Because I've heard people always say, "Hey, I have a gift for this," or is it something you overcome and now it's no problem? Because I know you don't. I can tell you don't struggle with it because you handle it too good. But what is the secret behind like not caring? I
Well,
guess.
what's funny is I actually made a podcast, a solo podcast earlier today about content creation. I'm going to start doing more content on it. People, hit me up and ask me. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to start teaching on that. And one of the things I had in there was, first off, we're all weird, right? And I actually pulled a book off the shelf last week to show the kids. You ever hear of Seth Godin,
Mm,
Godin? Brilliant marketing guy. I have most of his books. I met him in person a while back at a mastermind. And I don't even remember what was in that book, but I know I read the book. But the title of it, there's a guy in a dunce cap, and it's "We Are All Weird." And that's the first time probably a book really resonated with me just on the title. Like I got what I needed from that title. So embracing that fact that we're weird, right? Now, if you guys hold back sharing what your beliefs are, right, it's going to eat away at you. But if you care a lot about what other people think, you're going to hold back. Now, and we tie this into the mind mapping, right? The brain is highly sensitive to judgment from other people. So I long believed, so part of it is a blessing, right? Like part of me was just born that way where I really don't. And that's why with the COVID stuff and all that, I really didn't care what other people thought of me, right? Besides very few people, I'll take opinions of my close friends, family, right? And even Devin, she knows I always value her input and guidance. And she knows that um, I'm going to do my thing, right? I'm going to put my ideas out there regardless, right? And I don't want people to get hurt by that, but it really is like there's a great thing if you just remind yourself what other people think of you is none of your business. Okay. And a lot of people get so caught up in that.
yeah.
What does this person think? What if, one of the things I wrote on here when I made that podcast today is don't be vanilla, and vanilla is just trying to please everybody, not trying to ruffle any feathers. Right. And what you got to realize is if you speak your message and you're authentic, a lot of people are going to love it too. Right.
Yeah.
There's a big
Listen,
trade off.
real quick, everybody talks about AI taking over, AI and artificial intelligence, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not real. And to me, the real AI that's going to always be there is authenticity intelligence, right?
That's it.
Of
That's
just
it.
being authentic, because it's something that can't be recreated. You know what I mean?
It
As
really
far as
is.
that,
Authenticity is the biggest when they
highest
test.
vibrational. Yeah.
Yeah, highest vibration. We've talked about that is the authenticity piece, right? So I
Yeah.
think it's and not getting caught up when you see from a business perspective. Don't read comments if you know it's gonna disturb you, right? But
Yeah.
use the trolls to your advantage to make more content. Like and I think we've talked before. One of the main things I kind of know if we're on track with the content we're putting out is if we have the haters and the trolls. If they're
Yeah.
not present, then you're probably holding back somewhat, right? You're probably
Yeah.
holding back. But I think it's very liberating when you just embrace that we're all weird and you just kind of do your own thing and not really care what other people think. And then what happens? People are magnetized to that. The right people. They find that attractive because they want that freedom aspect as well.
Yeah. And that's what they're getting from you. Real people be attracted by real. And obviously, this is why fake people do really good right now, because a lot of people are attracted to fake too. You just have to realize that you are what you attract. You know what I mean? And there are certain people that are just going to be that way. I've heard the
Yeah.
statistic. I don't know if it's 50 or 90% of the people they said have no voice, have no voice talking to them, no conscience. Now I don't know if that number's right or not, but I do think it's higher than what I thought everybody had that right. But they're studying that people don't have that inner dialogue, inner voice, that they really are just running a program.
Yeah. Well, I think everybody's got it, but most people are not taught to tap into it, or they're
Yeah,
not taught how to be still and be mindful of all, their thoughts, right? It's hard to think about your thoughts and to really monitor them. It's not an easy thing, but people are
yeah.
so distracted. It's kind of scary if you start thinking about your thoughts and start examining them and
Yeah,
taking
because you
control over that.
yeah, responsible. And that kinda leads us into this, talking about dealing with, your first, I think, 5 years or 7 years of your programming, is every all that was given to you. Like, even now, I think adults, after they said 12, most people are 12 years old emotionally and the way they deal with things, and realizing that everything that we think, feel is from our past, our childhood, right? And then having to learn that the way you think and feel is not your own. That was handed to you through generations, and like talk about generational curses and all that stuff. What is your thought on that and how to deal with that? And obviously, this is where a lot of the addiction stuff comes from as well.
The generational curse type thing.
Yeah, yeah, just understanding that 0 to 5 and 7, like all that programming we got that was just given to us, right?
Yeah, no, it is. I mean, it becomes easier to grasp that concept and to understand when you said that word programming, right? Like this is technology. That's where psycho-cybernetics, we're talking about. Matt,
Yeah,
my coach, owns the rights to that. This is technology, and it's programmed the way you interpret things, right? So you have that aspect, right? You got to go back and say, okay, what was I taught or what was I modeled, right? A lot of the times it's not necessarily what we're told, it's what we're seeing,
yeah,
right? What we're seeing. And then tying that in, it's really funny you said that, man, because it's a slippery slope, right? Addiction. And something literally like you brought it up, and I was researching it today, with really interested in the dopamine aspect. Because a lot of times I feel like, me personally, I'm flat, right? Like, and it's like, well, what the hell's going on with my dopamine? But I've always been like that, right? So I'm like, okay, but this is why people become a big part of why people become addicted. So that the genetic curse and the genetics of it, it does run in families. It's a generational thing. But we talked about that too, even with your wealth attraction mindset, your fitness. Like, right, you see a lot of times you see somebody that's overweight, you're going to see that pattern throughout until somebody breaks it, right? And the hardest thing to do with any of these patterns is be the one that breaks it, right? Because
yeah, for sure.
you got these forces
Yeah.
acting.
Yeah, and listen, I think a lot of people when they use that term, they're trying to find a way to avoid responsibility. Like that's the number one thing. Hey, it's in my bloodline. Alcoholism, right? And this is kind of and I got to thinking about that, right? And I believe if you've got any family, you got alcoholism in any family, right? I mean,
Most
go
likely.
find me a family that don't. So, but here's my deal. So, there's methamphetamine is really big in the South, right? And it's been going on for some years. You know, that's not meth's only been around for 20, 30 years. So is that a generational curse? Because I know people that's gotten on meth, and I think it ties back into what you're saying. It's a dopamine problem.
Dopamine.
I think everybody's trying, and obviously there's a lot of different factors. Scientific. Have you ever seen the quadrants of the mind? Of like you got emotional, and then you spiritual, then you got the sciences, and then you got the physical. All these things are hitting all of these, but obviously there's a dopamine problem. but also people are running from emotions. This is why they're running to alcoholism. So there
Yeah.
is a lack of the dopamine that we can talk about, where it's like, hey, listen, when we work out, we get literally the same chemicals in our brain versus when we go to alcohol. But also people repress emotions and they don't get to be the authentic self and say those things. So they have to escape and run to alcohol. I believe that when you really can say, people are so scared to tell people how they feel, and there's a lot of family stuff going on, and that they have to repress those emotions. And the only way they can run is that. So I think there's two things, right? I think we can focus on that the dopamine part, but also realize there's an emotional, spiritual part that's got a lot of people.
It's
Um,
hey, baby. It's definitely you hit a lot there. And somebody too, just I remember one of the ladies had a breastfeeding and fasting question we'll come back to. So yeah, you definitely have addiction is a spiritual component. This is why the anonymous programs work. That's how the only way they work. Right? When you give it over to a higher power than yourself, you can't beat it on your own. And I think as far as the genetic, like you talk about methamphetamines, the you could substitute the
That's right.
substance,
No, for
right?
sure. But I'm saying they try to give this alcoholism some power, and it's like, no, it's the weakness to cave to whatever's there, right?
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Hey, listen, some of it's McDonald's. I mean, you talk about meth. I know meth heads that outlive people that are obese. So like, it's a food problem. It's anything. I tell people like, and I think there's a guilt and shame, like where people are guilty and shameful of alcohol, but they're not so guilty and shameful of being 100 pounds overweight. Right? It's a little bit more accepted, right? But those people die quicker than some of the guys I know with terrible meth addict problems. So trying to get the guilt and shame out of it and just focus on, hey man, we got a problem, and your
yes,
symptoms and what you're doing is just a symptom. It's not the root problem. We can't
no,
attack alcohol and get alcohol gone. We got to go into the brain and go understand really what we're fighting. And I just see so many people making that mistake, I think, and they're
yeah,
they're giving that they're giving alcohol way too much power. They're giving the devil way too much power, where it's just like, hey, we just got to understand the root problem, and it's avoidance. I think a lot of it, right, and being
yeah,
authentic and realizing that too as well.
it is. And figuring out how do you fix the brain chemistry? How do you get it back to, and with dopamine, right? A lot of the times it's doing hard stuff, right?
That's
That,
it.
that,
That's it. Challenge. They said challenge, man. It's got to be
that'll fix
challenging.
it. And the substances, whatever they are, food or porn or drugs, it gives you that quick hit of dopamine,
Free,
right?
yeah.
But then what happens? You don't feel good after, and you need more and more and more and more to keep it going, right? And then you start getting the guilt and shame because you really by yourself have no control over it, right? That's where
Which
you
is
got
the
to turn
lowest
up.
frequency. They say that's the lowest frequency. I think is the guilt and the shame.
It is.
Yeah.
It is, man. It's a terrible disease. Uh, for most people, though, the ones that succeed, it is they're in a group. They're giving that over to a higher power, and they got to admit their weakness. You got to admit it. Like that's the first step, right? You got to admit, hey, I got a problem,
Yeah.
and I can't control it. You know,
Yeah.
so I think it's a fascinating area, and an area that's only, a field that's only going to grow. There's going to be more and more addicts.
Yeah. Hey, listen, I've even said I believe just about everybody is one. It's just people's having control, right? I mean, obviously, I think we're all addicted to carbohydrates for the most part, right? And through fasting and your approach, you realize you really don't have to eat as much. So the fact that everybody is being controlled by this, and this has been struggle for you. I mean, through the years, obviously thousands of years, people had fasted and nobody wanted to, right? So just understanding that we're no different. I really try to separate, like, we're no different than an alcoholic, or we're no different than somebody that's addicted to meth. They just had a different childhood or a different, but they're all running to what feels good. And so we run to
Yeah,
comfort food. We run into this. And obviously, I'd rather have an eating problem than own meth. I'm just using that as an extreme example. But those guys are still just as trapped. People are just as trapped by food and controlled by it. And I think it's even worse because most people that have a drug problem know they have a problem. Just about
Yeah,
everybody. If you're on meth, you know you have a problem, right? But if you're addicted to food, you're like, oh man, my mom loves me like this, and my husband says he loves me like this, and they don't even know they have a problem, right? And like we
they
talk about,
don't.
the number one goal is to let everybody know we all got a problem. We all got weaknesses, and that's just working on those for
It
sure.
is, man. You use that, guilt as your compass. That won't lie.
Yeah,
We can lie to other people, but we'll know in our heart, okay, why do I feel guilt about this act that I keep doing? Right. And then it's up to the person when they finally say, again, turn it over. I believe, got my new rosary here. I'm actually pretty sick, but I believe you got to turn it over. You got to pray about it. Right. And just admit our shortcomings. Right.
yeah,
And to what you said, Lane, we all, I think, have that tendency some worse than others, but challenge yourself to get addicted to something that is good for you. Now, anything overextended can become a weakness,
yeah,
but challenge yourself. Get addicted to walking or whatever it is, right? Like, okay, well, how am I going to do something really tough right out the gate tomorrow morning?
yeah.
Like, start thinking like that. Like, what am I going to do that's going to challenge me? Because that gives you that dopamine hit, right?
There's a real good quote to this what we're saying. They said, not until you accept yourself for who you are can you change. And I thought it was a really good quote. You have to, and that was where I was at. I had to accept like this is where I'm at, and then also obviously this is a sales pitch here for us, understanding that you don't know how to get through that, and you can pay somebody that can save you time compression of a lot of experience and a lot of years of literally. I know I could talk to you for 10 minutes. If a person talked to you for 10 minutes or me, you could save them years of just like that, like literally a phone conversation could change somebody of
Oh
really
yeah,
understanding it. But obviously, the heart's got to be ready. It's got to be prepared, or it's going to be on deaf ears. I tell people that all the time. Like you got to be ready to hear it. A wise man knows a wise man, and I think a lot of people got to hit rock bottom, and that's another theory for me. I love people at rock bottom. I tell people like I almost pray for people to hit rock bottom because that's the only time a lot of people are going to listen because they're going
that's
to
it.
float and float and float and float, and it's like, hey, listen, I hate to wish something bad on you, but that is where anything good comes from. If you look at anybody who's got a really good story, they hit a rock bottom. You know what I mean? And what
You have
everybody's
to.
bottom's different, right? I mean, everybody's bottom's different. You don't have to be strung out homeless on the street to say, hey, I got to change, but you got to be I think you got to be forced in a situation where you have no option. And we talk about that with fasting. Talk about that on my program. The only people that do good is when there's no option. Like this is all we're doing. And some people got to be desperate, and some people can just train their brain to do that. But sometimes it's easier when you're forced because you don't have a choice.
Yeah, yeah. And pain is really the only thing that's as much as we think it's pleasure. You know, it's pain that's going to drive people that rock bottom. Let me hit this girl's question. Somebody asked about, maybe this would be a good way to segue into it. So obviously Devin's breastfeeding. So one of the ladies said, what about breastfeeding and fasting? Now, it's a common question. There's women all over the world that uh, just because of circumstances have to fast and breastfeed, right? Well, they might not have available means. You look at some of these African nations and whatnot, and now breastfeeding takes up a lot of energy, right? It's gonna really jack up that metabolic rate. So I believe you can, and what right now Devin's doing like a modified fast, like she's not eating till like 1 o'clock or so, right? But you got to compensate for that increase in energy output. So it's the same principle applies. You got to eat more. When you feast, you got to feast, right? You got to feast, but it's a common question women have. It is safe. It is totally safe, right? Your body will produce what it needs. Now, that doesn't mean you should be hitting 3, 4 day fast necessarily, but I believe you could periodically and be fine with the breastfeeding. You know what?
Hey, real quick,
Yeah,
what about supplements and vitamins, man? With pregnancy and stuff. I know a lot of people are dealing with that. So, do you have any extra things that you throw on? I know when Nicole was pregnant, we did. obviously the fish oils, but it's like a DHA. It was more of a
Yeah,
cod liver oil. They said to help the baby's brain development with that cod
yeah.
liver.
Poliquin used to go over that a lot. It was DHA and I think EPA. And I think the DHA was the one for the kids. I think it was the EPA, if I have that right. Kid's brain can't really metabolize that, so not good for it. I still believe, like most things, like Devin, does all the doing her prenatal, perinatal type stuff, vitamins, different gut health type of stuff. But to me, it's still your vitamin D, your zinc, your magnesium, and then try to get everything else from food. Pretty much get as much as you can from food. I think the fish oils are great. You're going to have to supplement with that. Um, Now, Poliquin used to teach us with fish oil, the leaner you are, the less you need. But he would teach us a real simple method, basically a gram per percent body fat for fish oil. So if you're 25% body fat, hey, you need 2 tablespoons of pure fish oil. So a lot of
So the more fat you have, the more
the
fish
more you
oil
need
you
it.
need.
Yeah, the more you need it.
It's crazy. Yeah, yeah.
So Issa had said she was the one with the fasting question. She can only do 48. So Issa, I would cut down the fasting, maybe go OMAD when you're breastfeeding, and then just keep an eye on it, right? It's like you exert yourself in the workout. It's that post workout, right? During the workout, blood sugar should spike, but post, you might have a dip. Um, so you just keep an eye on that stuff. But I would back off to 48s maybe, or if you're breastfeeding, maybe go OMAD or even like an 18, 20 hour fast and eat good, nutritious food. Yeah, but with supplements, I think, Lane, uh, you got your essentials. A lot of the stuff to me, like, I don't think multivitamins are very effective. When you take this stuff in isolation, there was a book I read a long time ago called Whole, WHOLE. And I remember they compared, it was about whole foods, right? But they compared like vitamin C, extracted, like let's say 100 milligrams of vitamin C in pill form and 100 milligrams of vitamin C that you would get from an apple. And the one from the apple was like 283 times more bioavailable.
So there's not even point in taking it then.
No, for most of them, no, yeah, because it interacts with other stuff within the food. That is
Yeah,
stuff that we
yeah,
can't get from food in high quantities. Your D, your zinc, your magnesium, like that's the type of stuff I recommend to supplement
yeah,
with.
yeah. I thought she was saying pregnant. So what do you what it, I thought she was saying fasting when she's pregnant, saying breastfeeding. What's your thoughts on
Breastfeeding,
pregnancy?
I still think it's fine, man.
Yeah.
I think it's fine. Again, there's women all over the world
Oh yeah,
that,
for sure. Yeah, yeah.
that have to do that, right? Because of circumstance, and it's your body. All of our bodies have so many stored nutrients, in the fat, to utilize and to tap into. So again, Devin during the pregnancy would do like a modified fast. She was hitting maybe 2 meals a day, but not what you shouldn't do, guys, is just eat constantly throughout the day. Like, I don't believe that. Devin she was very nauseous this time, almost the whole pregnancy until the last few weeks. But I remember going to the doctors, which are just listening. They're like, yeah, you should be eating blah, 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 this many times a
You
day.
didn't give them you didn't give them a sermon, did you?
No. But in the hospital, it was funny. I guess they got wind on the floor we were on. I don't know if the nurse brought it up randomly, but she came in, when we're waiting, they're getting Devin ready because she had to be induced this time because of preeclampsia. She's like, so we have a fasting question. And Devin's like, well, good thing you're talking to the right guy. I don't even know why she brought it up. Then we went into this whole fasting, and they were all fascinated by it, the nurses and a couple of the doctors. But yeah, it's just typically they're going to throw out blanket advice that they
Now I'm surprised you guys even went to the doctor. You should have had it. Y'all should have been in the house, Amish style, water
what
birth.
that was exactly what we were going to do, and then we
I
had
wish.
to. Yeah, we had a midwife. Um, we had everything set. She was bringing the tub in, and then randomly we went out to eat to my buddy's place before It was for before it was a holiday parade, so early December. And I remember that night it was a buffet. Driving home, and be like, man, I'm really thirsty. Next day in the workout, I'm like, man, I'm like parched. I just couldn't get enough water. So I don't know if whatever the sodium or whatever was in
Yeah.
the food, but Devin, now she's a month a month out, she swelled up, right, from whatever the sodium, whatever, and it wasn't going away. So the midwife said, all right, well, let's order some blood work and see just what's going on, just in case. And only because of that, I don't even know if it was related, they found out her protein to creatinine ratio was like sky high, which is a symptom of preeclampsia where blood pressure, could cause strokes and all this stuff. And the only cure for preeclampsia is to deliver the baby. So we were going back and forth. We had this all planned, and then all the way to the end, we were still going to do it. And then it was about a week and a half earlier. I remember it was a Wednesday. Devin was like, "My," she's like, "I'm having trouble seeing, and I'm getting this bad headache." And she called because the midwife had said when this started, she goes, "Look, you should start getting co-care just in case, because if it is preeclampsia, we got to be smart about it. Like, if something happens at the house, then you got to get in the ambulance and all that." So that Wednesday, the doc said, "Give it 45 minutes, eat something." She did. Nothing. It was still the same. Like, all right, come in. So I knew once we were going in, they were going to induce because her blood pressure was starting to spike. So, but it wound up being a great experience. There was a doula, and one of the nurses went to, midwifery school. So they were all on the same page with the vaccines and all that type of stuff.
Yeah.
It wound up being a really good experience. Kind of gave us hope again in some of the hospital systems.
Yeah. No, they're there for a reason, for sure.
Yeah. But yeah,
Some
we
of it.
were we were, we were going to be at home, man, all the way until the end.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. I don't want Nicole to get any ideas if she ever decides to have another one. But
You
yeah,
guys
that's
thinking
a
about it?
yeah. So yeah, I mean, we've done so well with the other two, so we was thinking, why not? So I
Yeah,
don't
go
know.
for it, man. Hey,
Um,
I
so
think I
that's the
got
only
it.
reason. Only reason why we're here, right?
Gives you the full life experience, man.
That's right.
You know,
Hey, I got a
yeah,
question for you real quick on this, about the fasting real quick. I've had a lot of guys, obviously it's a mental thing, but I've had some guys that are like, they probably got another 20, 30 pounds to lose, and they're like, their workouts, they're scared they're going to have low energy because they fasted for 24 hours or 48 hours, and, wanting to know about, the protein they're going to need. They're not going to, and I was explaining it to them, but give us the simple. I was saying, obviously their body fat, they have a lot of nutrients, they have a lot of stuff in there, and if they have that extra, they could go further than somebody that was leaner. Now, if you were leaner or something, maybe more of a problem. But what's your thoughts on like working out 24, 48, 72, with having
yeah,
a higher body fat, right?
totally fine. There's an adjustment period. I tell people when they first start, maybe that first week, it's I get the hesitancy because they're not used to it and they've been told all the stuff they need to fuel the workout. So I say the first week, just take it easy. Go in, hit your workout, but if you need to, just revert back to a walk. But once you do that and you have the juice, the salts, you should actually see that your performance should actually go up, right? As you get acclimated to really tapping into that body fat as fuel quicker, you shouldn't suffer with your workouts. Now, if you get into that 3 day realm, sometimes day three, early day four, you might feel a little funky. I think that's when there's major ketosis starting to happen. Then again, just read your body, back off, but still do something. Go for a walk or whatever. But people that have a lot of body fat that are concerned about, like, it's just funny, right? It's like, well, the fat loss process is mobilization, transportation, utilization. So you got to get blood in, which is the reason I started fasting back in the day, was for bodybuilding when I was competing. It was like, all right, how do the stubborn fat we have, really the only way you can increase blood flow to those areas is through fasting. But you have to get the blood in and then transport the fat out to be utilized by the working muscle. Right. So when these people are like, I need to fuel my workouts, I go, but if that's your fuel, you bet insulin goes up. You're shutting off the signal for the body to tap into the body fat. Right. One thing that bodybuilders got right was this idea of fasted cardio. That's been around forever, but that was when I was getting ready for shows early on. Do fasted cardio because insulin's lower. Have some caffeine with it. You're going to tap into that body fat store much quicker and much easier, right? So it's just
Now,
it's a
now
fear
listen,
people have.
you know, he
Yeah.
fasted cardio, but I mean, they're really tapping into fasted workouts too, as well, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. But I'm saying with bodybuilders, their whole thing was when they would do their cardio for fat loss, do it in the morning on an empty stomach. So they, they
yeah,
had the theory right with that, but
yeah, 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 for sure.
most of them are not. Like even when I was competing, I just always felt better to me, even before I started fasting, to train on a fasted in a fasted state first thing in the morning. I just felt more, just I don't know, it made sense to me intuitively to train like that. Right. And then
Yeah,
as far as getting your protein requirements, I think that's way overrated.
yeah,
I think it is. I don't think people need nearly as much as they've been told. And I love protein. I love animal, I love a burger. I love it, dude. But I don't think you need a gram per pound of body weight. I
yeah.
think in some circumstances, if you had like, hey,
Man, I got guys 300 talking about eating 300 grams of
there's no
protein, and so
reason,
it's like, man, what do you do? What are you doing?
no reason. There's no reason.
Yeah,
Like I'll play around with. So we're gonna do something in. We do a fat shredder contest at the gym every mid-April to Memorial Day weekend. We've been doing this for like over 10 years, and all the clients do it. And so I'm going to do it this year. I'll let you know once we start. It's going to be mid-April, but we're going to have a photo shoot at the end. But it's like the fat shredder, 6 weeks to shred it. So with that, I'm going to push it. I'm going to push it and get as lean as I can. Now with that, I'll play around with different stuff. Obviously, the foundation is going to be my fasting. Incorporate dry fasting. I might try pulling some carbs, just like old bodybuilding type stuff, to see how I feel. I'll use it as a learning experience, really just to get a certain look. But unless you're doing something extreme like that, eat good whole food. Your body will, like, you'll know, at least I know, like, as you get to know your body, I'll know sometimes, especially when I played around with for a while. I don't want to say being vegetarian, but I was very conscious, three, probably 4 years ago of, okay, let me try pulling protein even more, right? Because there is inflammation it's an amino acid. It's acidic. It makes the body more inflamed. There's no question about that. But it is more anabolic. So when I was keeping that lower, and I'd go a couple, do my fasting days, and there'd be a couple days where we were going like vegetarian, not every day, but there'd be times where I'd be like, man, I need to hit like with my meal. I need to have a good burger tonight. I got to hit like 6 eggs. I would just feel it, like I needed it, right? And I would listen to my body. When it was like, oh, you need whatever's in there, the choline from the eggs or the so you got to listen to your body, what
yeah.
it needs.